This video is to show the process for adding oil to the compressors. So I've already got the wrenches set out here. The majority of the place the oil goes is into these bottles here. So those two bottles are the shaft seal oil bottles. So basically the way these compressors work is a little bit of oil will pass by the shaft seals as part of creating a mechanical seal to prevent the ammonia from getting out. So in the process of it sealing the shaft that's spinning, it's also losing a little bit of oil. By the book, it can lose as much as 1 liter a day and still be considered within spec. Thankfully, we don't lose anywhere close to that. So as part of that, every now and then you need to top up the oil. In this particular case, there's a fair bit to top up because this compressor has been losing a little bit more lately through that shaft seal bottle, and that's typical, especially as you get further along in hours, closer to a rebuild. That can definitely happen. Whereas the other compressor, it was just rebuilt last year. Previously it was losing quite a bit through the shaft seal, and now it loses hardly any. Like I maybe take maybe take out like a half liter a year right now on the compressor that was just rebuilt. So this one that's getting oil added to it right now is losing quite a bit more than the other compressor at the moment. So you can do this when the compressor is running or not running. Main difference is if it's running, there's going to be suction on the oil barrel, like the pail of oil that you're using. So it potentially is going to be trying to pull the oil into the compressor, which can actually make it a little easier and faster. The oil pressure is going to be there. It's it's going to be there regardless of whether the compressor is running or not running. So the oil pressure is going to be different, but the oil pressure is always going to be higher than atmospheric pressure, and you can see that on your compressor gauges. And so because of that, so this right now I'm cracking open the packing nut. So that packing nut is what seals this valve in order to make sure ammonia does not leak out of here. And so you'll see that I put my hand on the valve before I start opening this, and that's because the pressure in the compressor is going to want to push that open. So now you'll see as I open this, I start pumping right away as soon as I start to feel the pressure on that handle, while I continue to open the valve to full, like to wide open basically. And the reason that I'm pumping while opening it is because I want to make sure I'm counteracting that pressure that's inside the compressor, because I don't want the oil, if I didn't pump while opening it, the oil could push out of the compressor into that pail, because there's nothing else to prevent that from happening. So you see I close that, just retighten that little wrench to close the packing tight. That's just to make sure it's sealed while I'm doing this. So right now the valve's wide open. You can see when I first started pumping, I was pumping a little bit faster, and that's because the pump didn't have like full prime on it. And you can see now, like right now I've sped up the video so everything's double time, just to make sure this video is not as long as it would be otherwise. So I'm not actually pumping as fast as it looks. The video sped up, but in this case I put in close to around 10 liters of oil into the compressor, and so that's the first time that oil has been added to this compressor since the last oil change was done, which was over a year ago. So it's not like we're doing this very often. In terms of the oil level, basically as long as you can tell there's oil in there through that sight glass, you're fine, and you really don't want it any higher than about like half to 3/4 at maximum. In these compressors, it's a fair bit of oil that it takes to make the difference between bottom of the sight glass and halfway up the sight glass. Like that difference is about 10 liters of oil, roughly. When you do this, as long as your oil is at room temperature, you're not going to impact, like you can see that crankcase heater there is keeping the oil warm so that when the compressor starts up, the oil's at the right temperature. As long as your oil's at room temperature, like the plant room's usually quite warm, so you'll be fine. Now you'll see I'm closing this after pushing it all the way to the bottom, and I'm holding it at the bottom as I ratchet this close. And so once the valve is fully closed, I'm going to then close the packing nut, and then my camera fell off there, so I had to reattach my camera. And now this is to create one additional seal, and the reason I keep my hand so close to the front of the wrench is because you don't want that to be super tight. If you had your hand at the other end of the wrench, you'd have way too much leverage for the size of that fitting, and you'd be over tightening it. So that's why I keep my hand sort of choked up on the wrench, is to make sure I don't over tighten it with that size of wrench. And so if you do this carefully, you can really do it with basically no mess. You'll see in a second that I make a little mess because I don't put the end far enough into the pail when I go to lift the hose up and drain it. But so you see I lift this up and undo it in order to drain it into the pail as much as possible. You want it all in the pail, not in the garbage can. You shouldn't really put any more oil than absolutely necessary in the garbage can, but putting a little bit in there is not a big deal because, well, the garbage bags are basically made of oil as well. That's what plastic's made out of. So you can see I've got a little spot set up in this room so I can hang the oil pump and then hang the hose above the garbage can in order to let it drip any last drips into the garbage can. And then just make sure if you do make any mess, whether it's on the oil jug or on the floor, make sure you completely clean it up and dispose of any rags that are saturated with oil. Any rags that you didn't, maybe that you had laid out but you didn't actually cover with oil, those rags you can put back and save it for another day. Anything you got in your wrenches, make sure you clean the wrenches if you got any oil on those before you put them back in the tool chest. And that's pretty much all there is to adding oil to compressors. As long as you do it